Memories are hazy, but they do linger. I remember waking up to familiar surroundings. It was my old room in my family's house in Tolga. At first, I didn't really notice the trashed state it was in. I was newly awakened and too disoriented. I do remember sitting up and calling out for Mom and Dad. Then it all came back to me. Mom and Dad had been killed in the food riots just outside of town a couple of weeks ago, when the aftermath of the outbreak had reached even our little safe haven. Melania, my fiancée, was with me at the time of the collapse. Just a few days before I lost my parents, we'd been at the evacuation outpost on the road between Gorka and Berezino when there was still some semblance of order. Because of some stupid dispute regarding paperwork and the usual petty squabbling that rises from frightened people, we never saw the infected until it was too late. The horns blared, but there had been no point really. Gunshots rang out and auto fire echoed with its pattering as the hordes of Zeds descended on the outpost. Scenes of horror came to life right before our eyes as they overran the military and feasted on soldiers and civilians alike. In the middle of the screams and the panic, I'd grabbed Melania and I made for the forest. We'd been lucky. Yes, we'd been lucky. Although I'm not sure you can call living with the memories of the screams of people being eaten alive lucky. Still, we were alive, and we had each other. After a few hours of hiding together in a deer stand and crying behind muffling hands, we decided to head for my parents' house. It was a long shot, but according to the last reports before the whole net went down, the southern areas had not been hit yet. And as we made our way towards Tolga, we tried desperately to formulate some sort of logical plan in this hell that unfolded before our very eyes. The things we saw along the road were clear signs of civilization's demise. We saw burnt-out wrecks, abandoned houses, people preying on others like sharks turning on their young. Most of all, we saw bodies. Countless bodies. But the worst part was the quiet, the desolation, the sheer emptiness of it all, the discarded remnants of mankind's civilization glaring at us as if to scold us for having survived. The absence of motors running and people murmuring was like a festering wound, especially for an urban dweller like me who had spent his last couple of years trying to make a life for himself in Berezino among coffee shops and supermarkets. The trip down south had been a mishmash of walking, running for our lives, hiding in shadows beneath trees, and avoiding both undead monstrosities as well as the living kind. As we'd finally reached Tolga, I remember being overjoyed as I saw Dad and Mom alive. They took us in, and I especially remember Mom's remark about how the family should stick together during such times. We had tried to make small talk, while the handful of people in town tried to organize outside. But the tension was undeniable. Things weren't the same anymore. Melania and I must have been a shock to see, our eyes still echoing with the trauma that we'd experienced. As chaos spread to our small town and shattered what remained of society, Mom and Dad became the first casualties of the New World. I made sure to bury them in the backyard. They always liked spending time there. Time passed. Weeks, or maybe months, they all blurred together. And then I woke up one day just to find that I was completely alone. That day, when I woke up to the horrible realization that my parents were no more, it was also the day when I woke up to find Melania missing. There was not a single trace of her anywhere. She'd been by my side all this time, stuck to me through thick and thin. We'd had our plans about the future. Even after the collapse, she had always been the one who'd be willing to offer up a hesitant smile and crack a joke every now and then. Most of all, she'd never given up on us, on our future together, and maybe even... My purpose was clear. I had to find her. And so I went to the graves of my parents one last time to say my goodbyes. Then I walked away and tried not to look back. I failed. Then I set about scouring the now deserted town for something that could aid me in my journey. I was not going to rest until I found out what had happened to my girl. And thus my search began. This is my story. The story of the survivor.